agenda. Up for consideration is retaining the certified professional accountant. Palermo and Kissinger has been our accountant for the last several years. I'd like to make a motion to retain Palermo Kissinger. There are no increases in the services in the general accounting. However, there is an increase in payroll services.
I would like to second the motion to keep Palermo Kissinger and Associates on board.
Okay. Chairperson motion, Supervisor Lawson second. Is there any discussion? No comments?
Mr. Free?
Yes.
Mr. Eskin?
Yes.
Mr. Trax?
Yes.
Ms. Dare?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson?
Yes.
Next for consideration is the treasurer of the township. I would like to make a motion to retain Richard Lawson, supervisor, as the treasurer.
I will second the appointment of Richard Lawson as the treasurer.
Ms. Dare chairperson made a motion, Charles Track, supervisor, second. Any discussion? Okay, roll call please.
Mr. Eskin?
Yes.
Ms. Dare?
Yes.
Mr. Free?
Yes.
Mr. Trax?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson?
Yes. No, I abstain. Sorry.
Next for consideration is our secretary assistant treasurer. I would like to make a motion to appoint Roberta Singer, secretary assistant treasurer, for the year 2022.
I'll second the motion for Roberta Singer for assistant treasurer and secretary.
Chairperson motion, Supervisor Lawson second. Is there any deliberation? Roll call?
Mr. Trax?
Yes.
Mr. Free?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson?
Yes.
Ms. Dare?
Yes.
Mr. Eskin?
Yes.
Next, zoning code enforcement officer.
I'd like to make a motion to keep Horseman CE Group, Jared D'Amico, as our code enforcement officer.
I will second that motion for zoning code enforcement officer. Harshman Group, Jared D'Amico.
Supervisor Eskin motion, Supervisor Lawson second, to retain Parchman CE Group, Jared D'Amico as the zoning code enforcement officer. Any deliberation? Roll call please.
Mr. Trax?
Yes.
Mr. Free?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson?
Yes.
Ms. Dare?
Yes.
Mr. Eskin?
Yes.
Next is the auditor for 2021 for the DCED audit. Ms. Singer, can you confirm that you advertised the request?
It was advertised by December 1st.
So went in and it was advertised
And you saw the report.
so we had a 30-day waiting period between
Yes, ma'am.
now and today. How many, I know I saw one bid come in from McCall Scanlon and Tice. Did you receive any more?
No, that was all.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to retain McCall Scanlon and Tice for auditor for the 2021 DCED audit.
I will second that motion to keep McCall, Scanlon, and Tice for the DCED audit.
Chairman motion, Supervisor Lawson second. It's open for discussion.
I didn't get that bid in my packet, so I don't have any information to base it.
Gary, would it be okay to push this off so that every supervisor has the full bid, or do we have to vote on this?
I mean, you can vote, I just don't know, I don't have the
Okay, any other comments? Okay, roll call please.
Ms. Dare?
Yes.
Track,
Yes.
Mr. Lawson,
Yes.
Mr. Eskin,
Yes.
Ms. Dupree.
No.
Motion, excuse me, the next on the list is a motion for earned income tax collector. I'd like to make a motion to continue with Keystone Collection for our earned income tax collection.
I'll second the motion to keep Keystone Collections for our earned income tax collection.
Chairperson motion, Supervisor Eskin second. Any deliberation? Roll call, please.
Ms. Dupree,
Yes.
Mr. Track,
Yes.
Mr. Lawson,
Yes.
Mr. Eskin,
Yes.
Ms. Dare.
Yes. Next would be the local service tax collector.
I'll make the motion to keep Keystone Collections as our local service tax collector.
I'll second the motion for Keystone Collections tax collector.
Dave Supervisor Eskin motion, Supervisor Lawson second. Any deliberation? Roll call, please.
Mr. Lawson,
Yes.
Ms. Dupree,
Yes.
Ms. Dare,
Yes.
Mr. Track,
Yes.
Mr. Eskin,
Yes.
Next would be consideration for sewage enforcement officer.
I'll make a motion for the sewage enforcement officer to continue with Washington County Sewage Council.
I'll second that motion to keep Washington County Sewage Council as our sewage enforcement officer.
Okay. Supervisor Lawson motioned, Supervisor Eskin second. The subject is open for deliberation. If I may speak, in our package, HCEG, Harshman Group, also gave a bid for this item, and it is recommended under the Act 537 plan that townships have a primary and an alternate authority that is, or excuse me, an enforcement authority in each municipality under an Act 537 plan. So we have two options, and that would be both Washington County Sewage Authority and Harshman, to be, one being a primary and one being an alternate. And I wanted to deliberate with the board to see if anybody would consider hiring Harshman as either the primary or the secondary. And another question from you, sort of thread, is there any conflict? Because we're using Harshman in many areas of the township. No conflict?
You have to have an SEO that's accredited, there are very few of them out there. But there is a motion on the floor to appoint Washington County Sewage Council as the Township Sewage Enforcement Officer. So they would, I agree that motion would be primary.
Okay. Okay, any other deliberation? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Track,
Yes.
Mr. Lawson,
Yes.
Mr. Eskin,
Yes.
Ms. Dupree,
Yes.
Ms. Dare.
Yes. Okay, so on that same line item, it appears that we must have an alternate as well, based on the Act 537 plan. So I would like to make a motion to appoint HCEG as the alternate sewage enforcement officer in Union Township.
That's Harshman CE Group.
Yes.
Harshman CE Group, yes. I will second that motion to have Harshman CE Group as the alternate secondary enforcement officer.
Chairman,
Sewage Enforcement Officer.
Chairman motion, Supervisor Lawson second. Any deliberation?
I actually, in what I got this evening, for Chairman, it says here from a paper from Washington County Sewage Council that it eliminates the need for a alternate by using the council. So there is no need for the alternate. I also checked with some of the other townships that have Washington County Storage Council, none of them have the need for an alternate, maybe because of the fact that, I don't know why, but I did read the Storage Facilities Act as well, and the way I'm reading it, with Washington County Storage Council, you don't have the need for an alternate. You'd only have the need for an alternate if you did it in-house with your engineer, because he couldn't inspect his own work. And any billing that would be done by Hirschman, because he's your engineer, would have to come through the township and not directly to him, which would cause, more work for the staff. He couldn't bill directly like Washington County Storage.
Madam Chairperson, does it cost any money to have Harshman on as a secondary? Is there any,
Well, it would depend on the service, but from what I understand, if there is a sewage emergency and a dye test is needed, the township has to pay the bill unless the system fails. And then the township is reimbursed. That's how it's always been from my experience.
On what? Just,
but for having him on as a secondary, it's not costing the township any money unless we have to use him, but we're gonna use the Washington County Sewage Council first. So it's not costing us any money.
No, in my review of this, it appears that it's an alternate in the event, and we've had situations where the sewage authority, for whatever reason, the timing isn't there, or they can't come out on a certain day. In emergency situations, it's just a backup.
I think we need him as an alternate. We do what you said, he hasn't, Washington County hasn't responded quick enough.
Any other comments or thoughts? Question to the solicitor, it wouldn't hurt to have an alternate, or would it?
I don't think it's prohibited. I'm not up on that issue. You talk to Harshman or someone else, but I did not enter into that discussion or research it, so. yeah.
I didn't
There
talk to
may not be-
Hirschman, it was in his engagement letter.
Yeah,
And I did look at the Act 537, but if it's fine, there is a motion, supervisors can deny it or we can table it. There's options there,
or you can approve.
yes.
I'd like to make a motion to table. I did print out some conflict of interest items and some, ways that if he is your alternate, what has to be done, because he can't do any of the billing himself, he can't inspect anything that he was part of the design for.
Well, I would recommend that you follow up with the tabling so that I'd have an opportunity to review that information.
I also printed out, I had the ordinance that we had with Washington County Storage Council from way back in the day. It may put you, if you change their thing you have to do by ordinance with a 12-month notice. So it puts you in all kinds of various different quagmires.
Bobby, we had a motion on the table to begin with, and then I know, Ms. Dupree motioned to table. So I got a little bit behind on that. So I think what we would have to do is, I would have to rescind my motion. So I'd like to rescind the motion approving HCEG as the alternate.
Who seconded your motion?
I did.
Rick.
You'd have to second that.
I'll second the motion to rescind it.
Mr. Trax,
Yes.
Ms. Dare,
Yes.
Mr. Lawson,
Yes.
Mr. Eskin,
Yes.
Mr. Dupree.
Yes.
Now the motion to table.
Supervisor Dupree?
I'd like to make a motion to table using Mr. Harshman, Harshman GE Group as an alternate
Sewage enforcement officer.
storage enforcement officer.
I'll second that. Table the, Harshman CE Group for sewage enforcement officer,
Alternate.
alternate.
Supervisor Dupree motion, Supervisor Eskin second. Any deliberation? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Lawson,
Yes.
Mr. Drax,
Yes.
Ms. Dare,
Yes.
Mr.